My name's John Wright, and I am. See, now you got that on my window, you know why? Because they can kiss my ass, and it's blue over red. Blue's on top, red's on the bottom, and red is the one that is behind it all. And that's just the truth. Look up at the blue sky and look at what I'm saying. If it wasn't true, the sky wouldn't be blue. And what Donald Trump has done is he's caused a lot of red anger on the earth. So let me tell you what. Now you look at my grandfather's headstone right there. Thomas L. Wright. December 22nd through September 22nd. He died on the 22nd. He was born on the 22nd. And he died in 1967. And I remember the day that my dad died. My mother had him come home. He was greeted by her at the door. He was told that your dad is dead. Just so cold. And I witnessed my dad walk right past me into his bedroom, face down on his bed, and just start bawling. And I sat outside that door and I listened to my dad cry over his dad's death. No other child was around, and I found my mother was so unconsoling. It was just horrible to watch such a scene of what an incredible, ugly person could do to another person intentionally. And that takes me to September 22nd, 1967. If you look at the numbers and stuff, 1967, well, 6 and 7's 13, and 1 and 9 is 10. So what we have there is the number 23. 23 comes up. You know, this is, I think it's called QAnon. And you know what? Jimmy Kimmel actually talked about this. He talks about this on his show, this QAnon. And it's a language that these Republican weirdos seems to be doing. And others, by the way. I didn't know that this even existed. But I started telling my brother-in-law, Ernie, about this language that people are doing. And actually, it is a language that they're doing. And because the fact that I don't usually watch TV, I don't have the time to watch TV because these people would like to keep me so disturbed that I wouldn't see what's going on. TV, I would have never known about this D.B. Cooper if my dad wouldn't have brought it to my attention through him telling me about, I'm worth a lot of money, you'll find me in California, you just look and you'll find me. You look for insurance policies, you look for this, there's insurance policies. He sent me on a mission looking for prudential insurance papers for sure, because he had me go through my mother's house to get the prudential life insurance papers from the Fiverboard paper mill. The Fiverboard paper mill is owned by Brown and somebody else, but right here my brother-in-law told me that the people that are behind the house here is Brown and Williams. Okay, Brown and Williams. Now we got the Brown Fiverboard mill, and now we got the Brown Cemetery in Morton, Washington. And also my grandma's place is next to the cemetery, and also the bowling alley's next to the cemetery. Also, this here place right here on Delphi and Alpine, you know what? I predicted a while back that they'd be here clearing this off for what? A golf course or a cemetery to bury Americans in. And that is exactly what they may be behind. Because I'll tell you what, another thing, my brother-in-law, when we started talking about these Browns, you know, he started talking to me about their heritage. They're trying to keep their heritage. Well, you know, at that point, when he said Brown and William, I said, oh, B&W, Brown and William. B&W like Bonnie Wright. You know, like Bonnie Wright. And I said, now, Ernie, I said, this is looking like it's a conspiracy right here with us on Alpine and Delphi. I have an attorney's office over there that's at Harrison and Plymouth, up at the end of Cooper Point, by the way. And my sister's following signs because she works up at Cooper Point, by the way. And I won't say the name of the business that she works at. But anyway, she works right there. She's following signs. We're here at Alpine and Delphi, and I've mentioned that to Bonnie. I said, we're right here on Alpine and Delphi, Bonnie. I said, are we following signs? I said, we've got a fire hall across the way, and now the fire hall's become, it's supposed to be abandoned. Now it's really became abandoned because the cops don't want to sit there and just sit there and watch and stuff. But you know what? I think that they're forcing. See, I see cops going past my place here all the time. Now, I even wave to them and stuff like that because, for one, I don't give a fuck. You see, that's the nice thing about it. I don't care because I had Terry Lance Shortridge murdered on my bed. You see? So now, let's go back to this headstone that we're looking at here. Now, from September 1967, I remember when his dad died. And my dad went back to the funeral. He went back to the funeral by himself. He didn't take any of the kids with him. He didn't take his wife with him. Marietta ran the gas station or the greenhouse. You know, I think after Dad came back from the funeral, he turned that into the gas station. It went from a greenhouse to a gas station, an Inco gas station. And I want you to know that Inco, and there's the Inco and the Exxon Valdez and the Johnsons right there. We got Johnson's right there in Port Angeles, Washington. And my dad's gas station and his greenhouse was right there at Gales Addition and Highway 101 East Gales Addition. And if you go down the 5th Street at Gales Addition, and by the way, my dad's mother was born on January 13th, 1895. 13 letters for the Zodiac, George L. Wright. You know, right there, he's living by signs. And she died February 5th, and he lives on 5th Street. He's living by signs. And in 1971, he hijacked that airplane, you know, after his mother's death. When his mother died, he took Jerry, Jim, and John, and I'm John, to Gooding, Idaho, or it was either Gooding, Idaho, or it was Boise, Idaho. I think it was Gooding, Idaho. And anyway, he painted his mother's house white and green. And matter of fact, my dad's dad worked for the waterworks department. See, he worked for the city. And people that get into the city and stuff, they're working in the city and they watch people and stuff. And you know what? They do things together. And my dad was telling me a story about him and Kenneth Roper. His dad, George L. Wright and Thomas L. Wright, did a little number on the neighbor's dog, Kenneth Roper's dog. And what happened was Kenneth Roper's dog ended up over at my dad's house. My dad was a young boy, you know, like me. And my dad was telling me, him and his dad did things together. So anyway, he says, go get me that bottle of turpentine. And you know what he did was they put it on a rag and he dosed the dog's asshole with turpentine and sent the dog screaming home because his asshole was burning. And that dog did all sorts of things at Roper's house, like ran through the house, chased his wife around Maybelline, and went out to the farm, went through the farm, and anyway, it ended up sitting in a pond shaking because its ass was burning, and Kenneth Roper was sitting there looking down the barrel of a gun going to shoot his dog. That was such a good dog. I mean, his dog really meant something to him, apparently. So anyway, he smelt that turpentine on that dog, and all of a sudden it became apparent what was going on. Somebody done something to his goddamn dog, and he was pissed. And he came over to my dad's house, and they were asking, "You guys do something to my dog?" Nope, nope, didn't happen. And you know what? He went over to his neighbor's house, and he beat the crap out of his neighbor, thinking that it was him done it. And they were friends, by the way, or something. And my sister Bonnie knows the story good because we just talked about it a while back. I brought it up to her, or she brought it up to me. One of the two of us did. But anyway, and by the time that it was over, by the time it was over, he beat the crap out of one of his best friends. That guy did, Kenneth Roper did, and that guy swore to him, "I never did it, I never did it." Even after the beating was over, he still never did it. And he couldn't believe that my dad and his dad would do such a thing. Is what my dad's telling me. He says, but at that funeral that my dad went back to, he says he was there at my dad's funeral, and he came up to my dad and he says, "I just want to ask you, did you and your dad turpentine my dog?" You know, And my dad says, "Well, it's been a long time." He says, "And I'm just going to tell you the truth. It wasn't me and my dad that did it." And what he did was my dad admitted to me. My dad could admit to me that he's done something wrong, is what he's telling me. But he couldn't tell me what he'd done in such a way. But he did tell me what he'd done in such a way, too, by the way, for all the evidence that'll prove it. So now we get back over here to my dad's mother, and I'm at 11:54, so I'm going to have to make this close, or I'm going to have to come back to this. She died on February 5th. Now, the Mrs. Burke, that was in Port Angeles, that got murdered before our missing, abducted, gone, that was right there at my dad's gas station, Marty Johnson's store and everything. She ended up dying after my dad went to Idaho to repaint my grandmother's house. After my grandmother's house was repainted and everything, you know, we came back. We ended up in over there in Mossy Rock, Washington, at Mossy Rock Lanes, and that bowling alley, the house in front of it, ended up getting burnt down. It's a warehouse now, the Mossy Rock Lanes, and it has a trailer park there. And I'm going to have to cut this off, and I'll come back to Fannie Mae and the cemetery stone right here, because this is what triggered the Zodiac. Is the Thomas, it was his death, his dad's death. Plus, he may have been doing murders and stuff around Port Angeles through that Brown's Mill and people around there, because I know that the Browns is dirty, the Browns Mill. And by the way, my brother-in-law telling me that, to protect Brown's heritage and all that stuff. What does my brother-in-law have to do with protecting Brown's heritage when I said Browns are on my radar because of Brown's fiberboard mill, Brown's cemetery next to the bowling alley? We're on Alpine Bowl in Delphi here, and it's an inside job, and I want everyone to know that the cops are involved in it, and I'm pointing out every single thing about it. If you're dirty, you can get a job working for the city, and you're just nothing but an eye enforcement for these pigs. And I'm out of here. It's 14 minutes, and it's 14 minutes flat.